All right, I know with masks and everything else, it's even that much more difficult. Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. If at any point during these proceedings you can't hear me or the lawyers who are going to be at that podium, just raise your hand and let me know, and we'll go ahead and make sure we figure out some way to accommodate that, okay? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here for the case of the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William R. Bryan. The case may or may not be familiar to some of you who are here today. What we're going to be doing, though, as part of the case is seeing what you know about the case, and we're going to allow the lawyers to ask you some questions in order to find a panel of 12 individuals. And those 12 individuals we're looking for would be fair, unbiased, impartial jurors who are seeking the truth in this case. The process we're about to engage in is a process that's designed to determine whether or not you're the right person for the case, whether or not you fill all those criteria. The way we do that is we ask questions. So what's going to occur is the lawyers themselves are going to be asking you questions. First the state, and then the lawyers for the defense. And again, those questions are not intended to embarrass you or make you feel uncomfortable. They're simply crafted to determine or help determine if you can be a fair, unbiased juror. Please make sure you respond to the questions. A lot of folks don't feel that comfortable responding in a group, but it's very important in this process that if you have an answer to a question, that you go ahead and respond. Okay, so please make sure you do that. If for some reason you are asked a question where you feel uncomfortable responding in front of the group, that's okay too. Keep your hand up and then let us know that you feel uncomfortable responding in front of the group, and we'll make sure that we set up a way to go ahead and get your answer onto the record so that we're clear about what your answer would be. Referring to the record, okay? When I say record, what's actually going on here is everything we're doing is going to be taken down by a court reporter. The court reporter is sitting right over here, and the court reporter will be transcribing everything that is being said. Because of that, I need you to speak up and make sure that the court reporter can hear you, okay? If at some point in this process we can't hear you, I might interrupt you and ask you to speak up. Don't be offended, that's just the way it works. And this room is big. I mean, for what we're doing, it's a very different way of doing this, and so we might have to do this. But let's make sure that we can hear you when you speak. Also, during jury selection, you are going to be referred to by the number on your chest. We do not use names or anything like that because it's easier to go back into the records at some point in the future if we have to and go and see who's speaking by reference to those numbers as opposed to names. So again, if you hear your numbers being called out, that's why. As to this way of doing jury selection, this is a little bit different for us. So you're going to have to bear with us a little bit. COVID has, and the public health issues that are out there have sort of changed the process. We're spaced out. We're in compliance with public health guidelines. We're doing everything we can to continue with that. But because of that, again, we're getting sort of comfortable with a different way of doing business. And I do ask for your patience in that regard, and I do appreciate, again, you being here. What's going to happen initially is I'm going to swear you in. I'm going to ask you some preliminary questions, and then we're going to get right into jury selection. Okay? So with that, if I could please have you stand. Raise your right hand. You shall give true answers to all questions as may be asked by the court or its authority, including all questions asked by the parties or their attorneys concerning your qualifications as jurors in the case of the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William R. Bryan. So help you God. Thanks. Go ahead and sit.
Question.
Yes, sir. Juror 773.
In responding to the questions, is it with or without the mask on?
I'm going to ask that you keep, and I should have touched on that to begin with, I'm going to ask, in order to stay in compliance with health guidelines, everybody needs to keep their masks on. Okay? Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the case of the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William R. Bryan, who are charged each individually and as parties concerned in the commission of a crime by the grand jury of Glenn County with the offenses of murder, felony murder in 4 counts, aggravated assault in 2 counts, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit a felony. Are any members of this panel related by blood or marriage to any of the defendants just named or Ahmaud Arbery? No response. Have you, for any reason, formed and expressed any opinion in regard to the guilt or innocence of the accused?
Yes.
I've got juror number 30. Just keep your hands up.
Have I formed an opinion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
2. I can see you.
3.
3. 4. On the end, ma'am, I can't see your number. All the way in the back.
Sorry.
5. 7.
And 19.
9. 11. 19. 21. 30. 35. 37. Have you any prejudice or bias resting on your mind either for or against the accused at the bar?
You don't hear the question? Your Honor, may you repeat the question, please?
Have you any prejudice or bias resting on your mind either for or against the accused at the bar? At 19, 35, and 37. Are your minds perfectly impartial between the state and the accused?
No. Read it again.
Are your minds perfectly impartial between the state and the accused? 1.
Your Honor, if I may ask, maybe we ask it in reverse with the, if your mind is not perfectly impartial between the state and the accused, please raise your card.
So we're going to go ahead and do that in the reverse. If your minds are not perfectly impartial between the state and the accused, please raise your hand.
I'm not sure what you mean by impartial. It can be anything. Explanation. All right.
So the question with regard to impartiality, as it is stated, means, are you leaning any particular way in this case, or are you neutral with regard to the case? So when I ask, are your minds perfectly impartial, be neutral, between the state and the accused? Is there anybody?
This is without hearing any evidence.
I'm sorry?
This is without hearing any evidence. This is just.
Correct, without
what we
hearing
happen
any
to
evidence
know.
as you sit here now.
Okay.
Or you are not.
Based on what I've read.
I'm not either.
So let me see the hands then. Got 5, 7,
3.
3, 4, 11, 9, 22, 32, 37. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the, what we just referred to as the statutory questions from the court. What's going to occur at this point is, again, the state, and then each of the defendants is going to have an opportunity to ask you questions. If you please go ahead and respond to those questions as openly and honestly as you can. Thank you. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, state's ready.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Linda Dunikoski, and I'm one of the Assistant District Attorney Pro Tempores in this case. So first off, I'm going to start off by asking you a series of questions. It's real easy. I need hands up, okay? And the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is, if you think it might apply to you, it does. Well, I don't know. Yes, it does. Well, should I answer yes? Yes, it does. So feel free to always go ahead and raise your card, because here's what's going to happen when you raise your card. We're going to come back later, and we're going to individually talk to you. So you're going to get interviewed, and you're going to get to tell us exactly what you meant when you raised your card. All right, everyone good? All right, let's start. So first off, is there anyone here who does not currently reside in Glenn County? No cards. Is there anyone here under the age of 18 years of age? No cards. Is there anyone here who has been convicted of a felony and not had your rights restored to you, like, so you can vote and participate? So if you've been convicted of a felony, let us know. Juror number 35. All right, is there anyone here who sat on the grand jury that returned this indictment in June of 2020? You would remember, you were in this room. I was here. No cards. All right, is there anyone here who is currently a post-certified law enforcement officer? You have arrest powers. Number 25. Is there anyone here who is 70 years of age or older and does not wish to serve on this jury? No cards. Is there anyone here who is currently a full-time student enrolled in and attending classes? Number 20. Is there anyone here who is actually a full-time caretaker of a child under the age of 6 years old? That means you are full-time and taking care of a 6-year-old child without any other reasonable accommodation. Or are you caring for a disabled or elderly person who needs full-time care and you have no other reasonable accommodation? Anyone? All right, so we have number 5, number 19, thank you, and number 3, and number 22? 22. All right, is there anyone here who has difficulty understanding the English language? All right, number 28. All right, and 22. And is there anyone here who has difficulty hearing? Juror number 8. No other cards. All right, so I'm going to talk about hardships. Okay, before y'all put your cards up, I'm going to give you some qualifications, okay? So first off, we anticipate that this trial is going to run from today and potentially up till the 19th of November, which is the Friday before Thanksgiving. We are hoping that it does not. However, in fairness, we need to go ahead and let you know that's a possibility in case of something like this. You are planning on being in another state for the birth of your first grandchild and have already bought an airline ticket. You need to let us know about that kind of thing. 2 weeks from now, you're having open heart surgery. You need to let us know about that kind of thing. So any sort of non-work related, notice how I just said non-work related hardship or conflict that you might have that you want to let us know about, please raise your card so we can go ahead and talk to you about that. All right, we have number 7 and number 19. Number 2, and number 32, and sir, what is your number right there? 21, thank you, sir. 1, number 8.
What is the question again?
do you have a hardship that's a conflict between now and November 19th, but it has to be non-work related, and it has to be something like open heart surgery, you're going to another state because it's the birth of your first grandchild, things along those lines, which are sort of life-changing events that you've already pre-planned. Okay, so I'm going to put you down, sir, so we can talk to you later about that, okay? Great. And then I think 22? All right. All right, so let's talk about Glenn County. Let's talk about the district attorney's office. Is there anyone here who's related by blood or marriage, third cousin or closer, to the current Judicial Circuit District Attorney, Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney Keith Higgins, or any of his assistant district attorneys that work here in the Brunswick Judicial Circuit? Do you know Keith Higgins? Do you know any assistant district attorneys here? No cards. All right. Is anyone here related by blood or marriage, third cousin or closer, to the former district attorney, Jackie Johnson, or any former assistant district attorney employed by the Brunswick Judicial Circuit? No cards. Anybody know personally Jackie Johnson? No cards. Anybody know any former assistant district attorneys? No cards. All right. The district attorney pro tempore in this particular case is Mr. Flynn Brody from the Cobb County Judicial Circuit, which is northwest of Atlanta. Does anyone here believe they're related or know Mr. Flynn Brody? No cards. All right. Anybody know me? Linda Dunikoski. Anyone know my trial partners, Mr. Paul Camarillo? No cards. Miss Larissa Olivier? No cards. All right, is there anyone here who currently has an opinion, whatever the opinion is, doesn't matter. If you have an opinion about last year's election here in Brunswick, where District Attorney Jackie Johnson was defeated and Keith Higgins was elected to the position of District Attorney, does anyone have any sort of opinion about that particular election? No cards. Does anyone here have any sort of opinion about how or why the Cobb County District Attorney was assigned to prosecute this case by the Georgia Attorney General? Anybody have any issues, any opinions about that? No cards. Is there anyone here who will be unable to give the state a fair trial because the ADAs don't live here? We're not from Glenn County, we're from Cobb County. Is there anybody who's not going to be able to give the state a fair trial because of that? No cards. And does anyone here know, or are you related to the current Waycross Judicial Circuit District Attorney George Barnhill, or any of his assistant district attorneys? No cards. Does anybody actually know Mr. Barnhill or his son, George Barnhill Jr., who actually practices law here in Glenn County and Brunswick? No one knows the Barnhills? No cards. All right, does anyone know or are related to Atlantic Judicial Circuit District Attorney Tom Durden? Any assistant district attorneys from the Atlantic Judicial Circuit? Does anybody know anybody down there, or actually up there? No cards. All right, here we have our defense attorneys. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with Mr. Sheffield, and we'll start with Mr. Rubin. Does anyone know Mr. Sheffield or Mr. Rubin? Related by blood or marriage? No cards. Anyone know Miss Laura Hogue or Mr. Frank Hogue? Related by blood or marriage? Know them personally? No cards. And then we have Jessica Burton and Mr. Kevin Goff. Does anyone know either of those people? Mr. Goff? All right, and we have juror number 3. Anyone else know Mr. Goff? Just juror number 3. All right. Now, does anyone here personally know Greg McMichael? He's seated over there next to Laura Hogue. Anyone know Greg McMichael personally? No cards. Does anyone know Travis McMichael, seated right here? Does anyone know him personally? No cards. Does anyone know William, who goes by the nickname Roddy Bryan, who's sitting down there? Anyone know Mr. Bryan? All right. All right. You've seen the three gentlemen who are in the indictment. Do they look familiar to you? You might not know them personally, but you're looking at them going, yeah, I think I might know him from somewhere, I don't know. Anybody feel they are familiar? Number 25.
Would they be from TV or anywhere?
Yeah.
Actually, no. Forget television.
Oh, okay.
Forget the news for a minute. I'm talking like, you know, they might go to my church, or I might have seen them in the grocery store, or I might be in a neighborhood near them and have seen them, you know, something like that. I'm not talking about the news media and that sort of thing. I'm talking about you personally in your personal life might have seen them.
I withdraw.
Okay, so I gotcha. All right, so does anyone know a Miss Amy Elrod? No cards. Does anyone know Mrs. Lee McMichael, Mr. Greg McMichael's wife? Lee McMichael. No cards. Does anyone know Greg McMichael's daughter, Lindsay McMichael? No cards. Now, as you heard, the victim in this case is Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. Did anyone know him personally prior to this incident, February 23rd of 2020? Anyone know Mr. Arbery personally? Does anyone here know his mother, Miss Wanda Cooper Jones?
Yeah, I know her.
You know her personally?
Not personally, no.
All right. Is she someone you believe does anyone here think that they might have recognized her or know her from your personal life?
I mean, I just know her from being around, but not personally.
Gotcha. Thank you, number 9. And same with Mr. Arbery's father, Marcus Arbery Sr., and his brother, Marcus Arbery Jr. Does anyone know them personally? Like, know them personally? No cards. Does anyone believe they, prior to this homicide, knew them or knew of them or were familiar with them? No one?
Was there an Elrod in part?
Miss Amy Elrod. Do you think you know Miss Amy Elrod, sir?
Elrod?
Elrod. E-L-R-O-D.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. And feel free, come back. If I'm going too fast and you all of a sudden think, hey, you know, she asked that question a few times ago, wave me down, let us know. Thanks. All right, I'm going to ask you a question we talked about. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, when you received your jury summons, did anyone note that this was this case, the state of Georgia versus McMichael, and Brian? Did anyone note that specifically? And we've got, all hands are up, basically.
Yeah, it was on the paper.
It was on the paper. I just want to make sure somebody noticed it. The second question is, did anybody, once noticing that, go to the website and begin clicking through the documents that are available to the public there? Please raise your hand. It's not a big deal. I just need to know if you went and looked on any of those documents that were on the website. All right, and sir, you are number 7.
The documents, you are meaning the news about the case, or are you meaning document of the one we were filling out?
I am actually talking about legal documents, like legal documents.
Okay.
So
On the jury website, there's a whole series of motions and so forth. That's what I'm referring to.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if it's a legal documents, motions, it's a copy of like the indictment or something like that. And it's okay, I just need to know if you had a moment and looked at it and reviewed it or read any of those documents that have been filed in this case. And so, sir, that's fine. Anyone else? All right. Now, has anyone here ever served on a jury before? And when I don't mean you got called in, you got questioned. I mean you were in the box, you went in the back, and you deliberated with other people, no matter what happened at that point, but you deliberated with other people, jury service like that. Please go ahead and raise your cards for us. All right, we have number 3 and number 11. And you, sir, as well? Number 8, thank you.
Excuse me. I think I was moved away, but I started in a number 8, but I think I just didn't make it.
So, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you guys tell
I
me
don't
again?
understand. I think that I almost was once.
Okay, you almost served on a jury one time,
Yeah.
but you didn't make it as far as being in the room after the
Right.
case and the evidence was presented to you to
Right,
deliberate,
I was let go during a,
like this process.
yes, right.
Gotcha. Thank you, number 8. All right, and then we have number 32. Anyone else serve on a jury where they were deliberating? All right. So 3, 11, 32, did any of you serve as the foreperson? No. 3, 11, 32, was your jury able to reach a verdict? Everyone reached a verdict. Okay. Now, has anyone ever served on a grand jury here or anyone else? Grand jury is different than that. So, sir, you are number 21. Thank you, 21. You served on the grand jury. Anyone else served on a grand jury before? No other cards. All right, so we're going to go through some other people here. Does anyone know Judge Walmsley, personally or professionally? No cards. Please raise your hand if you have served in the military, our armed forces. All right, we have 773. We have 19. Anyone else? Thank you for your service. Does anyone here have any prior law enforcement training or prior law enforcement experience? You're already post-certified, number 25, we've got you. And anyone else with post-certification law enforcement training? No other cards. Are you related by blood or marriage, or have a very close personal friend who is involved in law enforcement? I'm going to start over here with 773, 19, 25. I'll repeat that. 773, 19, 25, 11, and that's what we've got. Those are all 4 people.
Can you ask that question again?
Sure thing. Are you related by blood or marriage, or have a very close personal friend who is in the field of law enforcement? Meaning they're a law enforcement officer or they're an MP in the military or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Oh, military, like Navy?
well, not necessarily are the armed forces, but are they an MP in the armed forces? Do they have arrest powers? That kind of thing. So 30. Thank you, sir. Please raise your card if you have ever been employed in the field of social work. No cards. Please raise your hand if you have had work experience or your undergraduate degree was in counseling, psychology, or if you're a doctor and you're a psychiatrist, if you have any background in counseling, psychology, or a degree in those particular fields. Does that apply to anyone here? No cards. Please raise your hand if you have had any work experience in the legal field. Paralegal, worked in a law office, you're a lawyer? Nobody. All right. Please raise your hand if you've had experience, like job experience or life experience in the criminal justice system. And that could be anything from working with probation, going out to prisons to minister. It could be social work. It could be any aspect of the criminal justice system. 25. Anyone else? No one.
Any aspect of that just means working with the law enforcement agencies?
Yes, we're going to go. See, Juror 30 is doing it right. It could apply. We're going to ask you about it. So Juror 30 and Juror 19.
I think, I have a question.
Yeah, here's the thing. You're doing the right thing. We're going to go ahead and
I think that's what.
yeah, talk to you individually later. So definitely raise your card like that because that'll help us go ahead and remember to talk to you about that. Great. Is there anyone here who's related or has a close personal friend who works in a district attorney's office? It doesn't necessarily have to be here. It could be anywhere in the United States, but you have a close personal friend who is, like we are, prosecutors. No cards. All right, is there anyone here who has medical training? And by medical training, I mean real medical training. I don't mean you were a lifeguard. I don't mean you took a CPR class one time. I mean, you went to school, you're in the medical field, you've had some sort of medical training. No cards. All right. Is there anyone here who is related by blood or marriage to a criminal defense attorney? No cards. Does anyone here personally know someone, either they're a close personal friend, a relative, family member, or someone you regularly associate with, who is actually a criminal defense attorney? No cards. Is there anyone here who has had a bad experience with law enforcement such that it sticks out in your mind? Number 19 and number 35. Anyone else have a bad experience with law enforcement such that it sticks out in your mind? No other cards. Is there anyone here who's had a good experience with law enforcement such that it sticks out in your mind? No cards. Is there anyone here who's had a bad experience with a prosecutor, an attorney who prosecutes? Bad experience could be here, anywhere else. Bad experience with a prosecutor. 19. Is there anyone here who's had a bad experience with a criminal defense attorney such that it sticks out in your mind? No cards. All right, so I'm going to ask you questions about you. Then I'm going to ask you, the next follow-up question is going to be about a close relative or close personal friend. Okay? So for instance, right now, please raise your hand if you have ever been accused of a crime, arrested, prosecuted, or convicted of a crime from basically the level of DUI up to something much more serious. So I'm not talking traffic offenses, fender benders, that kind of stuff. I'm talking DUI to something more serious. You've been accused, arrested, convicted, or prosecuted for that personally. 35 and 19. All right, so now we're going to talk about a close relative. I don't mean Uncle Bob in Iowa who you've never met. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody you are close with, you see them every Thanksgiving, or a very close personal friend. Have they ever been accused, arrested, convicted, or prosecuted for DUI to something more serious? All right, so we've got 773, 19, number 8, number 3.
For DUI about 12 years ago. For DUI
For DUI?
about 12 years ago.
You had a DUI 12 years ago, sir?
That's 12 years ago.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that.
Something like that.
Number 3, we also have number 4. Anyone else? Friend, close person. Number 9, number 35, and number 37. Yeah, these are trifocals. Bear with me. Has anyone here, you personally, ever been falsely accused of a crime? 35. Do you have a close relative or a close personal friend who has been falsely accused of a crime, whether it was prosecuted or not? 35. Anyone else? No other cards. Okay, so we talked about convictions and arrests and prosecutions. We're now going to talk about being the victim of a crime. Have you yourself ever been the victim of a crime? And it can be any crime, and whether the police were called or not, you feel you've been the victim of a crime. Please raise your card. 35, 25. No other cards. Is there anyone here who has a close personal friend or close family member who's been the victim of a crime? 19 and 35.
Let's go back to the other one.
Sure.